So Dziva, Ndau, Mlambo, they all come from the same family. Uh, and this is based off of history. So in Zimbabwe, we have what we call Dziva, or not Dziva, or Dziva Guru, which is where it stems off of, which means the great pool. Dziva Guru was an ancient cult that was prominent in the Zambezi Valley or Zambezi Valley back in the days, 1400s and 1300s. So while Mono Motapa existed on its own and other empires existed on their own, Zambezi was really the top notch, the cream del cream of the time. So this is where they had, so in Shona or in Zimbabwe we have Mwari. Mwari is the god, is the all-knowing. But back in the day, before the word Mwari was introduced, they used to have what they call, around the Zambezi, they used to have what they call Mulungu, which meant like the higher god. They also had Dziva Guru, which meant the higher god. So there's Dziva Guru, and then there's Msikavano. So this was a branch or a family that was, if you look at it historically, when we call them white people, or when these businessmen or when these colonizers came to Africa back in the day, they would seek out for spiritual advice or spiritual powers from the people called Mlambo or the Ndau or the Dziva, because the belief was that when we look at the hierarchy of creation, Vana Dziva, Vana Ndau, these are direct descendants of Musikawanu, which means that the person that created the little people or the people, that's who the Ndau, Mlambo, and the Dziva descend from. So what that means is that because of their close relation to their ancestors, they have more abilities. So these abilities can be likened to, I like to say that when you cannot explain something in the physical, people call it spiritual, some people call it magic. So the Ndau or the Mlambo Dziva, these are people that are known to be very magical or spiritual people. Hence, if you go to Chipinge in Zimbabwe, you'd find out that there's Muti, there's Mshonga Wakapenga, because those people are very connected to the spiritual realm because of the lineage that they descend from. So when you look at the whole evolution, Charles Darwin, what they teach you in school, saying, oh, Homo sapiens, sapien, which is actually false, because they set aside who we call the Atlanteans or the Afro-Atlanteans. The Afro-Atlanteans are also known to be descendants or one of the top human root races, or one of the most ancient root races that we have, which is why the Atlanteans did what they did. That's why they left the history that they left, that we can't even trace about Atlantis. But the descendants of the Atlanteans, i.e. Noah, the biblical flood, these are, okay, before I even get there, let's go to Dziva Guru. Dziva Guru was known, it's a spirit that embodies itself in people that are most likely from the royal lineage, or the people that come from the Dziva Guru descendants, because all of that, it follows the DNA. If my DNA doesn't have Atlantean or Dziva or Mlambo ancestry, I won't be able to tap into the spiritual powers or the gifts that come with holding that DNA. So Dziva Guru, the history of Dziva Guru, there's many Dziva Gurus that lived here. And the Dziva Gurus were known to be historically people that would do acts of kindness wherever they went. They would cause the rain to fall. And if you look at it historically, who we call gods or kings or ancient gods, basically, or deities, they were known to make the rain fall. They go to high places, or they go to like stone mounds, and they would call for rain because of how tapped in they were with the spiritual realm and how tapped in they were with the hierarchy of human evolution, creation. So, like I said, the white people used to seek out, when the whites came to Africa to colonize, because they did before the colonization, when they came to Africa, they would seek out spiritual powers. This is in the 1800s, 1700s. They would seek out spiritual powers from the Dziva, Ndau, so on and so forth, because they were just tapped in like that. So what we have to know is that Dziva, Mlambo, and Ndau is one family. This family descends off of who these are descendants of the people of the biblical flood who later became the Israelites or the chosen ones or whatever you'd like to call them. But as far back as we can go, this group of people are descendants of the Atlanteans. Same applies with even Jesus's. Maybe there were many Jesuses, but that's why. But they all descend from these bloodlines. To the point where if you see other races or other people, we may look alike and everything, but our DNA holds different information. Our DNA holds different abilities and possibilities, I guess. So that's where the difference comes in. Even though we may try to merge in and live together, we're different, and the whites realize that. That's why they would seek out spiritual help and advice from the three groups of people that I'm telling you about. So so that's pretty much it. If you look at the Mutapa or Monomotapa Empire, this was an empire that was started by who we call Mutota, or it was perpetuated or continued by a person called Mutota. Mutota was known to be Dziva. And if you look at Mutota himself, that was who we call Akhenaten, or the descendants of the 18th dynasty of Egypt. So Mutota in our culture, in Shona culture, we call Mutota the person that brought people here in search of salt, and he brought his civilization and he civilized blah blah blah. But who Mutota really is, Mutota is not the person that we read about from the 1400s, 1300s. If you were to go back in the 1400s and the 1300s AD, you would find out that the story of Mutota was still a far-fetched story. It wasn't. So in history, we learn it as though it happened in the 1400s, but no, that was also history, because Mutota is the biblical Moses, or the Pharaoh of the Exodus, who took the Israelites out of Egypt and brought them to Southern Africa, the promised land, or whatever you'd like to call it. So this is where we are now. Yeah, I don't know. I have a lot to say, bro.